band outside would start and you'd stop listening to my introduction. You should know that I am the child who set their kitchen on fire 7 times in a year. And in my defense, I was left entirely unaccompanied, right? I would say I was homeschooled, but that would be too convenient of an excuse. I will never forget wanting to create French fries. Should be simple, right? You go ahead and you chop everything up. You try to make sure that it all fits into the pot and the oil and its grease. And then you pray. Well, in my case, I figured if I turned that heat all the way up to the flames turned blue, I'd get done faster. And I did. But by that point, the pot was on fire. The oil had slipped over the side of the pan and into the fire itself, and suddenly, I watched my whole life go up in flames. And as I tried to hide the carnage inside of my kitchen, my parents came home and they looked at me and were like, "Egypt, what are you doing?" Like, look, I'm a kid of a lawyer, right? If you ask me a stupid question, I will give you a stupid answer. So I looked her dead in her face and went, "Nothing?" And she didn't believe. She looked around, she saw the soot that was on all of the walls. It says, "Kids, you're grounded." But you're not grounded because you set the kitchen on fire. You're grounded because you tried to hide it from me. And I own the house. And I thought about all the times I've tried to hide the holes in my heart and my emotions with things that I wasn't ready to go and talk about yet. And I realized that in a lot of ways it's just complicated. Like, being a human is hard, yo! Like, apparently there are all of these social interactions that you've got to play just right. I have always found the idea that there's a such thing as silent letters to be really ironic, you know? Like, you don't know if you're dealing with a knight or a knight until you're either lost or impaled, and by the time you figure that out, it's too late. I always thought it was funny that the ancient honest is silent, when really it's what connects those two bars together that holds the strands of you and I, and at some point or other, I realize that I've lied when you've asked how I am. But it's complicated. You know, people have asked where I've been. It's been 5 years, I'm a little taller, and it's been hard to explain because honestly, I don't think I went anywhere. I watched as the rest of an industry drove forward, letting Jesus take the wheel on that highway of life, but to a certain extent, I think there was a moment where they left him bathed in tail lights 6 weeks back, and back in those miles when suddenly the elation in their stomachs swore that they had validation for the things that they were doing. It's funny, because I haven't gone anywhere. I stayed and I waited and I planted so that once the shadows of everything was able to move out of its way, I was able to stand in the light of day and under a sun and asked him how I've grown. And with the light on my face, I realized that I have been pacing myself away from things that I never knew, to things like peace, and second chances, and grace, and the idea that I'm running a race on my own. For so long, I had blinders that just allowed me to see where everybody else was. And I was on my own detour. Like I said, man, being human is complicated. And if I'm honest, sometimes it's complicated because we make it that way. Like, it's kind of like asking a kid to tie their shoes. You know, it's a very simple knot, but somehow or other they have tied themselves together and into the anchor of a type of innocence that you forgot you had until things started going wrong. And so now, when you're standing and you're looking at this highway, you're wondering if whatever it was worth it. Did I take a right in the cadence, or did I leave peace behind me? I'm still wondering what ended up happening when I was younger. Man, when I was younger, I wanted to be a member of Congress. Must have been before I was taught lying was wrong, I guess, but never mind, I digress. Back when I was younger, my want for success rivaled my need for recess, and I thought if I did well in school, it meant that I was cool, man. And then all my friends would end up as tools in this workshop called humanity, and that's the thought process of little kid me. And I grew up and I found out it wasn't that easy. The same day, I got bullied for being too fat, and then for being too skinny, and then for being just the right size. I guess short and summarized, there are days where you just cannot win, Audiofeed. You can't win. But look, I'm from Cleveland. I know that when thunderstorms roll in, it never takes away the hope or the promise of seeing that sun again. And sure, there will never be a touchdown in the Brown Stadium, but I am safe from a storm there. And God, you have always made a place where your child can come back to. And so, well, I appreciate that. I just needed you to know that when I was younger, life wasn't as strange. And I wish it wasn't complicated.
I went to a lot of youth conferences as a kid. And part of the reason why is simple. I don't like endings. And youth conferences end. You know, I just spent a couple of days with my best friends worshiping, and I finally felt like in those moments I was getting closer to God. And now it feels like I've got to leave him at that same altar that I promised I would meet him at, and I go home to bullies, to not so great situation with my parents, and it's like life is waiting for me just outside that door. I don't know if I can handle it. I know that I need you, but I don't know where to look. Dear God,
I have a whole lot of questions. And really, one of the reasons I decided to come here in good old Illinois is to give you answers. The first idea is that I really need to tell you that I am not political at all. Like really, I promise you that I have at some point taken like a right of common sense and a left of peace. Because in the last 4 years, I've heard so many people have debates about me without actually listening. So here is the answer to the question that you haven't asked yet. I am not political. That's it. That's the poem. That's the big idea. And I was worried that when I stood here and I told you that I just wanted to make sure that you could see me and that my life shouldn't be at the beck and call of first impression or shadowed in the idea that maybe there's something to reach for. I wanted to let you know that the melanin in your skin has nothing to do with the price of salvation, and that she will hang on to the hope that she hears in a smile, and he will cling to the grace of common sense and stained glass with hearts of experience. And I am a child who loves the Power Rangers. I love the idea of standing up to a bad guy. That maybe if I got knocked down, I'd just come back bigger. And there will be explosions, but they will be beautiful. Because if a heart breaks in the silence, I've always wanted to know if it makes a sound. Like as it crashes, does it sound like me? Does that lie come out in a melody when I refuse to be honest about where I'm at? Does it fall in a cascading symphony with its heart matching all of the marches of my heartstrings? I believe that rock bottom is a blues band. That anxiety is sitting on my heart stoop and it's just playing its harmonica as everything else fiddles with the strings that I am just trying to pull together. But I know that a harmony only works when every broken piece realizes that it is not singing on its own. That you are not singing on your own. That every broken piece brought together makes this beautiful melody. And sure, we come crashing down after the bridge. But that's what makes a song. If I told you how your story ended, would you believe me? Like, would you only see yourself as the product of an ongoing process? The one that's still processing their emotions and validating them against the things that they know they've got to go through and all of the questions they've had? And they Google the answers anyway. We know how it works, but to get to the end, if you saw where you ended up, would you believe me if I told you? Would you still think that it's worth it? You know, leaving a movie before the credits roll is only something that you do if you don't find meaning in its ending. And you'll push past that picture, but what you won't realize is that they are the ones that know the mess that you're sitting in. And when those lights come on, they can see everything. And sometimes I think that's what we're afraid of. We are afraid for people to see the mess and the wreckage that we have made of the lives that we had and the ones we wished we were living. And suddenly, everything becomes a lot scarier when transparency means that we are now cleaning our glass castles with Windex. I think I did the most growth when I stopped doing cleaning. It's not complicated, it's just human, and it's honest, and it's beautiful, and I can find someone who will take your mess and turn it into a message. You are perfect, the way that you are. And all of your drop C tunings, impending doom, and your screaming, and the fact that you let this little brown kid come and hang out. I think it's important to be honest. I think that it's important to be vulnerable. And I think it's okay to be complicated. We just have to accept that that is us as we are. So God, I remember when you and I used to walk together, right? Like, do you remember it was us? It was me and you. It was you and your baby girl. It was us against the world. And there was nothing that could ever tear us apart. I just wanted to let you know that I remember dancing with you. I remember swaying in my room long past lights out. And my mom would come and ask me, what on earth are you doing? But it was me and my father. At that moment, I couldn't be farther away from any of my pain. Your hand reached out across that chasm, and it pulled me through the mess that I made myself. When I see footprints on the beach, and I'm noticing that there are places where you walked with me, you were very careful to add that there is also this deep groove, like right in the middle of the beach, through all of the stupid things that you have dragged me through. God, I shouldn't have cut my own bangs. It was a bad idea. YouTube said it would be fine. Spoiler alert, it was not. But man, we made some great memories. And I'm wondering, God, if it's possible, could we dance again? Could you be my hero? And I'll be your princess. And we can kind of skip the dragon part. Shrek did that really well. But I would love if you could be my knight in shining armor.
Because I am yours.
And you're mine. And we are inseparable.
In Puerto Rico tonight, nearly 1 million in the dark after the deadly 6.4 earthquake. President Trump has now signed an emergency declaration tonight. Supplies are now being rushed in.
A full warning remains in effect right now for Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and Anne Arundel County. The severe weather that moved through the area earlier tonight left behind major flooding, especially across southeast Baltimore.
For more than a decade, the suicide rate among kids in this country had steadily and consistently declined, but that trend ended abruptly.
Frequent death strikes is too dangerous for people to leave this area.
Hey God, I just gotta ask, and it's not a jab or anything against you, but do you know what you're doing? Like, there are moments where I feel like I am the orphan of the choir, the one that's standing outside of the doors and just hoping that at some point the banging that I'm giving will just let me in. And the only thing that I'm hearing is reverberating around the fact that I just don't feel like I'm good enough. Like, you need to come get your people. Because I'm from the south side of heaven, and I will throw hands. God, where are you? Where are you with every tear that I have ever cried, that I have forgot, that I tried to repress? I need to know where you were when the slurs came before my brain was old enough to reach them. I need to know where you were when my foundation of faith was quaked by a church that had something growing in it that just couldn't shake. God, why didn't you come to me in a horror movie? Something called Midnight Mass on Netflix. Don't know if you've seen it. It's fantastic. A priest goes out to Israel and he comes back and he swears that he's got an angel on his side, and it's helping him make the sacrament. And so the faithful start coming into the church and singing their lines and finding their hymns and giving their rhymes, and something crazy happens because they see what this priest has brought back. And spoiler alert, it's a vampire. I remember sitting there wondering, like, how did you not notice that something was wrong? And I realized that that Netflix show is a long story short of where I watched you go church. What happened to your sacrament? Where is the blood? Because suddenly, I think it's been spoiled, and you've left a lot of us here. So, this has just been signed from your orphan, the choir.
I know that there's a line between being honest and being vulnerable. And I also know that on that line is where love is, that is where grace is, that is where hope is, that is where I am. But sometimes I think it's just kind of hard to find me, you know? I feel like I'm lying. People ask,
How are you? And you make sure that you're telling me the truth, because honestly, like of all of the times you've asked, you should know that I've kept my words few for fear of bothering you, but in lieu of my silence, my face should have screamed volumes, it should have risen from my eyes, my body language louder than the cries that refused to rise to these lips the last time you asked me, how am I? Audiofeed, can I be honest? Can I tell you that it felt like I was dying? Like something inside of me was just trying and primed to break loose. You'd asked if I was alright, but God, I gotta know, like, why did you make a tree in the first place? What was the point of Adam and of his Eve? If only to teach me that no one actually reads apples' terms and conditions. Like, really, what was the point of leaving temptation there when you knew what would be in the air if they ate? And they were hungry. God, I need to know if you knew that when I was born, I was put on this spinning rock that goes 6,000 miles an hour around the sun. And when you tell me to look for peace, you ask me to be still. But I haven't known what that's meant to be since the day I was born. And when I look for it, I will fill myself with all of the things that are not of you. It's kind of like Olive Garden bread. You know, like you get those breadsticks and you just keep eating until you forget what the main course was. Well, God, I'm begging you to put me back on course, back to your track, back to the circuit of things that you have created, and back to the answers that I know I have begged for. And you said that you'll tell me later. I've always wondered if having questions meant that I was enlightened, and your answer to me was very simple. You were like, Egypt, if you shut up and sit down. I can tell you that light has weight. Like, seriously? Light has weight. And it's like just enough to knock spaceships off course on the way to the moon. But really, like, scientists have to put in the idea of light particles bouncing off the sun. And you were telling me that to be called enlightened, you'd be pretty smart and you'd have all of your questions answered, but then, kid, what would you need me for? I've created this universe and given you things to explore. I've taken your confessions and I've made them into something more. I just need you to work with me, kid. It's fine. I promise we'll get there. And God, you should know that I am sorry for every single time that I have repressed the person you have made me to be. Because for some of you, heaven is going to be very confusing. There will be all types of colors in every tongue, in every tribe, in every nationality. So it's important to not be colorblind because you have missed so much of the beauty of creation. You have missed the very thing that the Lord has said is part of his creation. He told me that I'm good. He swore that I was good. So why don't I feel that way? All I know is that I wrote my confessions down. I sent this letter. I got this back. It said just very simply, on the paper that I had sent it from, slipped back under my door, I had written every confession I had. And under it, you had written a bit more. Simple. Very much just said, to my child. What's going on with you? We haven't talked in a while, and now you're beginning to think that every reflection that speaks back is a word that's for me. That's a wonderful melody, but I need you to see that you are simply my child. To the pride of my eyes, when at last will you realize this life I have given you is my gift? It's already you wish it to be over. When will you understand that I will never summarize you by your mistakes, but just by the steps that you take to reconcile them with me? Kid, thank you for your confessions. You should know I'm a god. It's in the business of making broken things whole again. I will take your mess and your wreckage and turn it into my message. So kid, you will always have my favor. And this message was signed lovingly from my creator. So Audiofeed today, thank you for hanging out with me. It's been a long 5 years, and I cannot think of a better place than it would be to be back. Thank you for allowing me the space to be honest and vulnerable, and also to be a little awkward. Because now, I know that together, we can find home. That's very important. I'll see you guys soon, okay? We got one more song for you. You can hang out with me.
I
Be
think
super
that
helpful.
religion is a lot like going to church and thinking about fishing. But relationship is both fishing for thoughts of a God we know is at odds with our musings of feeling alone, but it takes courage to say that. And sometimes it takes more courage to say that it doesn't always feel that way, and a vulnerability to admit that that's true, and it hurts to think of it in a way that doesn't imply that there's a lack of faith, but a part of the condition of being human. That it's not a test, it's just honest.
I always like to end things with a song, and honestly, when I was younger, it's because no one gave poets a sound check. If I brought a guitar, people listened to me, and it was a lot easier. But I want to tell you a story, because I got like 5 minutes, and to me, this is super important. Last year, I was diagnosed with cancer, and it was the first time that I had stared down the barrel of a pen and realized that some of the things I was writing could be my obituary. And I wasn't sure the thing that I wanted to leave, but I did know that one of the things that I felt like in spaces was that I could be alone in a room full of people and nobody would notice, right? Like I could go to a concert and I could stand right in the front row. Toby Mac could spit all over my face, and he would never notice that I was the kid, that was there. And sometimes I think that that's true of a lot of us here. Audiofeed is a festival that brings together a whole lot of weirdos. I've seen you. In fact, I checked into my hotel last night. First thing that the front desk clerk says is you should be careful. There are some strange people out here. There's a music festival. And I was like, yo, that's where I'm going. And she looked concerned. So, I actually wrote this song while I was on tour with a band called Desiring Dead Flesh. To this day, it is my favorite thing that I've ever written because it's something that I can't sing alone. And that's something that's important for me to let you know, is that you're not singing alone, ever. There's at least this many people who care about you. There's a random poet from Ohio who thinks you're cool. So I wanted to play this song for you, and if you guys could help me out, I've got a part for you. Is that cool? Yeah. I was gonna do it anyway, but you agreed, so that's great.